Stop wasting shots with wedges. If you're ready to finally play better every single round, you have to make sure to follow these 7 wedge tips. In this short video, I'm going to give you some of the easiest to apply tips so you can hit your wedges better, play more consistently, and finally lower your handicap. The first wedge tip is to make sure you're actually playing the right wedges. You're making golf so much harder on yourself if you're playing wedges that are not suited for your game. For example, if you're a mid to higher handicap golfer, you should probably play wedges that are more similar to your cavity back irons. If you're trying to play blade-like wedges, you're just going to make golf so much more difficult because they're not nearly as forgiving. Not to mention they're not going to go as far, so you might have some big distance gaps. So make sure you're playing the right wedges for your handicap levels. The second part of that equation is to make sure you have the right amount of wedges. Most players should have 3 or 4 wedges. That way you don't have any big distance gaps and can save a lot of shots inside 125 yards. The second wedge tip is to make sure we're setting ourselves up for success. Your setup position will greatly impact your ability to hit flush, good wedge shots, or if you're hitting a lot of thin and fat shots. Start by getting more weight to your front foot. I like to think weight forward with wedges. When I have about 60 to 65 or even 70%, depending on the lie, of weight on my lead leg, it makes it easier to compress the golf ball and turn around my body. You don't need a big backswing. You don't need a ton of power with these shots. So we want to make sure we have more weight on our front foot so that way we are getting a better strike and hopefully making more flush contact. The second part of that is to make sure we have the right ball position. Too many golfers play the wedges either way too far forward and try and help the ball up, or too far back and then they get steep. So make sure the ball position is typically in the center of your stance. It's going to have a huge impact on your ball striking. The third wedge tip is to make sure you have a pre-shot routine. Now inside 75 yards, that's kind of where you switch to a short game routine. So a pre-shot routine is something I talk about a lot on this channel because it's the one thing that can really help all players play more consistently and master your mental game at the same time. But inside 75 yards, you want to have a dedicated short game routine. Now, why does this differ from a long game routine? Because you don't need to hit it far. You're not behind the golf ball trying to scan and really lock in your target. Anything inside 75 yards, I actually like to take my practice swings next to the golf ball. I can kind of feel out the lie, the grass, what the ball is going to do from there. I can have a good couple looks at the target and then I go. Again, regardless of if it's a full shot or a short game or a putting routine, make sure it's faster. Lingering over the golf ball longer will lead to missing more fairways, greens, and putts. Speed up your routine. It'll have a huge impact on your scoring potential and it'll have a lot more confidence over the ball. If you don't have a dedicated short game routine yet, I can't recommend creating one enough. It'll help you have tons of confidence over every wedge shot. The next wedge tip that you need to follow is to have the right tempo. Too many golfers take too big of a backswing and then they decelerate. And when you decelerate, you're gonna hit a lot of chunked and fat shots. So please make sure we are always accelerating through the golf ball. The easiest way to figure out the right tempo for your game, for both short game and long game, is to invest $25 in the Tour Tempo app. Using the app, you can train your tempo to make sure you're consistently accelerating at the golf ball and not anytime sooner. Again, if you decelerate, you are going to hit a lot of chunks and thins and just bad shots. Make sure you have the right tempo. It'll help your strike and it's going to help you hit flush wedge shots. What's your favorite wedge tip? Hit the comments now and let me know. The fifth wedge tip is to make sure you develop a wedge matrix. You have to figure out how far you actually hit every single club in your bag, so that way whether you're 65 or 85 or 105 yards on the course, you know the right club and the right shot for it. So make sure to spend some time at the driving range or a simulator, preferably using some sort of launch monitor, so that way you can go ahead and figure out how far every wedge goes. You want to have a full swing distance wedge, you want to have a 3/4 knockdown wedge, and then maybe even a third distance. When you have that type of wedge matrix, you're going to have a lot more confidence on the course. You're not going to doubt your clubs. You're not going to spend too much time over the golf ball, and you're probably going to hit a lot better shots. The easiest way to do this is with a simulator or a launch monitor, and that way you can map out your wedge distances, and then as your swing changes or you have different weather, things like that, you might need to change it a little bit, but it'll help so much so that way you're stepping into every wedge shot with confidence. The sixth wedge tip is to hit more knockdown shots. I'm actually at a par 3 course right now and I'm seeing a lot of people trying to hit a lot of full shots. What we want to do as often as possible is hit controlled knockdown wedges. When you do that, you're going to have a lot more consistency because you're going to be taking a less than full swing, so you typically make better contact, Plus, it's going to be a more mid-trajectory shot, which means it won't spin as much, because backspin is cool until it hits and then it spins all the way off the green. Trust me, you don't want that much spin. So try and hit more knockdown shots. They're going to be more controlled. You're probably going to hit more greens of regulation because it's just not going to spin as much, and you're just going to have a lot more straighter ball flight as well. So make sure to hit more knockdown shots if possible. Now, the final wedge tip is to simply manage your expectations. Too many of us think that we should hit every wedge inside 10 or 15 feet. But if you look at the PGA Tour, you will notice that they are hitting their wedges, 15, 20, 25 feet. The problem is that when you see them on TV, you're only seeing them throw darts. They're always hitting it super close. They're holing out wedge shots. They're holing out bunker shots. That's just the highlight reel though. That is not the average PGA performance. Make sure to have the right expectations so that way you're not beating yourself up or putting more pressure on your game inside 125 yards. Having the right expectations off the tee, into the green, and even around and on the greens will have a big impact on your ability to stay focused, to go through your routine, and to not put pressure on yourself. If your wedge game needs a little bit more help, make sure to download my free 10-page guide on how to become a wedge wizard. The URL is going to be here on the screen, or it's going to be linked down below in the show notes. It's 100% free and going to help you have a ton more confidence in your wedge game. If you want even more golf tips to play better without changing your swing, make sure to watch these two videos next.